In the next edition of It's About Money, I'll be talking with Pat Braus, who's the Executive Director of the Rochester Education Foundation. As we know, education is the fastest way out of poverty, and it's a great program that they're doing, and we want to learn more about it. Stay tuned for the next edition of It's About Money. Hello and welcome. I'm Nannette Nocon, and thank you for joining us. In this edition of It's About Money, my guest is Pat Braus, and she's the Executive Director, the founding Executive Director of the Rochester Education Foundation. Thank you for being here, Pat.
Thank you so much for having me here.
I appreciate it. Now, help me. The tagline of REF is because every child deserves a great education. So tell me a little bit more about the mission of REF and share it with our viewers.
Sure. The mission of REF is to provide resources and programs so city school students can be successful. Our belief is that city students, like every other student, really deserve the support and resources that they need to flourish in life.
That's terrific. And you do that in so many different programs, right? Let's talk about the Give Back, Give Books program. What does that do? And
it's a really fun program. This is a program that is focused on getting books to kids and supporting literacy activities for kids. We have given new books, 32,000 new books to kids since this program started in 2006. And behind the program is the idea that kids will become better readers if they spend the time reading, which is supported by research, but most important to me, if they read books they really want to read. So what we do is we offer to educators in the city school district an opportunity to apply for up to 200 new books. And they use those books to create book clubs and events where parents come into school and read with their kids. And then at the end of the school year, the kids bring the books home for their home libraries, which is very important. There's a lot of research that shows that kids who have books at home are better readers. And likewise, kids who spend time reading are better readers. So not only does this program bring kids a lot of pleasure, but it really is helping them to build their academic skills.
that's terrific. And what a great structure. So the books stay in the classroom until the end of the program, then they can take it home and build in their library.
Yes.
So it's no opportunity to lose the book and not continue on.
Right.
There's a reward at the end. So with that, those are new books you mentioned. Are there any other opportunities for donors who might have books in their homes that they might want, that their child had used? Or
Well, it's such a good question. We have thought we started out accepting new and used books, but what we found is we're a small organization. We don't really have the capacity to sort and store the used books. I personally, and we've talked over the years about creating a book bank, like a food bank, where you could do that, but it's a big effort. We don't quite have the resources yet. However, there are, I would say, continue to be public libraries are still a good source for used books. Families have so many terrific used books that sometimes they want to share. So I wouldn't discourage that, but we, at this point, are not the group to be able to share that.
And you would want the quantity also in order to have the book clubs and the organized efforts. So, and then you have a couple of wonderful programs with music, Spring for Music and REF Music Fund.
Yes.
So let's talk about the Spring for Music. What is that about?
Well, Spring for Music was our very first program. We started it in 2005. We were trying to figure out what would a good program be, and I met someone from Nashville who said they had done a program like this where they collected used instruments from the community. And they collected, if I recall, about 200 of them. And they said, well, you won't be able to get that many in Rochester. We're the Music City. So we thought, well, let's give it a try. So here we are. This many years later, we have given more than 1,000 musical instruments to the city school district. And what is wonderful for kids to use, what's exciting about that program is that I think the donors sometimes are as excited as the kids to have this opportunity, because often they've loved their instrument. You know, people can find these instruments maybe in their closet and then they get a new use. When we started this effort, there were schools that only had 14 instruments. So if you were the student 15, 16, and 17, you know, anywhere beyond that, you might not get to play an instrument. Now there are more instruments, but the support continues to be important because A, we're giving used instruments, so they don't last forever. But B, what music teachers tell us is it's so important to play the instrument you want to play as a kid. So if a kid wants to play a flute, you don't say, play the drums. So this gives kids choice and opportunities, and we've been very fortunate to have a booth at the Jazz Festival the last couple of years, thanks to M&T Bank, and it's really fun. We get to meet a lot of people. We actually, Nannette, it's amazing. We now have instruments mailed to us every year from around the country.
My goodness.
Last year we had 2 violins from Massachusetts. It's amazing because it is a bit unusual what we do, and we're very proud of it.
And how do other people know about it? I mean, there's a website, but I wonder how others know about it.
I think it's just Google, the wonders of Google.
Yes, of course. Oh, that's great. So help me kind of lay out the mechanics of that. So the instruments are donated, and how do you divide up the instruments among the various schools in the community?
Well, I will get to that in one second, but I realize given the topic of this show, it's very important to say that we give donors a tax deduction, you know, a letter that documents that it is that we're a tax, you know, a 501c3.
Thank you for bringing that up.
That's
very important. Yes, it's about money after all.
Right. But in terms of the district really decides where the instruments go.
I see.
And that is just a task we have not taken on, but they've been a good partner in this, in our program.
I see. So you basically collect the instruments. And,
yes.
And then so these instruments are mostly donated, but you also are establish the music fund,
yes.
right? And that's very recent.
Yes, that's something we've established this year. We reached out to music teachers and said, how are we doing? Are these instruments providing kids with what they need to start being successful? And they're very happy to get the instruments, but they said there's other things that kids could use. For instance, our kids, if they qualify in the city, if they qualify for a regional music competition or even a local music competition where they might have to pay for dinner and during rehearsals and such, they don't necessarily have the money, so they're not going to those. Mm-hmm. They also said that there are young people who might have studied an instrument and they're ready to apply to college, and there are even kids who want to be music majors. They need instruments. They don't have a high enough quality instrument, so that was another need. And we realized and also even something so minor as music books. Teachers told us we could use those elementary music books. Mm-hmm. And so when we collect instruments, we also say we could use the music books, but we're also raising money to be able to give these kids the resources they need to really excel. I always think about my own family, and I played the flute. I had no talent. If I had talent, my parents would have really encouraged me to go to those competitions, and fortunately we could have afforded it, but for kids and families who can't afford it, it doesn't really seem fair that they shouldn't have that opportunity.
It's a great point. You know, if there's a decision to buy the basic needs of life and a flute or a musical instrument, that we know what the decision and it seems appropriate, so it's nice to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So we talked about the value of books in terms of being great readers, and I've also read some studies that say it's the number of books that the child has access to that determines their education, progress in their education. You know, what level or grade they graduate from. Not so much the parents' education, but the child's.
Yeah.
What kind of influence does music have? I mean, probably some of these kids will be music majors, but maybe not all of them, right?
Yes, it's interesting. The research on music instruction is very interesting because what researchers say is that just the experience of studying music can help students with their math. And also, I think the habits one acquires, playing an instrument, the practice that is needed, the focus, mm-hmm. the goal setting is extremely helpful for young people. So researchers have really looked at a lot of different components, and the end result is it's just incredibly positive for kids to play an instrument. And so I think that's another reason why providing these instruments for our city school kids is so important. You know, what we hear from teachers locally is just that the kids who are really excited about music, they're more likely to go to school, they're more likely to have better attendance. And I think as a parent, I know if there was one thing my sons wanted to do during the day in school, then they're there and they're present. So so I think there's a lot to be said for music instruction.
It's true, you're right, because they fill the time, so might as well
Yes.
fill it with constructive,
Right.
meaningful. And plus, there's a lot of good music. If they're
Yes.
probably not involved in a musical instrument, they may not appreciate the
Yes.
music, from classical music and things like that.
Yeah,
So
I wanted to mention also, we met a young man this school year who was in 6th grade, and he basically told us one of the things he loved about playing an instrument was it gave him a sense of peace. And it was quiet, and I think that's also a wonderful component. Is we have a pretty challenging, for many young people, their lives are pretty challenging, and musical instruments can offer this moment of peace and grace and all the wonderful things you get out of culture. And so I know I love the idea that we're helping to enable that to be offered to young people.
that's great. Even just the recognition that there's value to having some
Yes.
peace in one's life from time to time. In a busy
Yeah.
day, a busy schedule, people around. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
terrific. That's really a wonderful thing. So, in terms of the music fund, you secure monies for that by donations from individuals,
Yes.
from foundations.
Yes. And again, we are a 501c3, so any donations are, we will send a letter to donors. But yes, we do.
Yeah, that's terrific. So, and then there's the National Academy Foundation. So, help me about that. Those are paid internship programs.
Yes, this is again, very germane to the subject of this program. We know that with young people, if they can hold down a job, show up every day, and be dependable, they're much more likely to graduate from high school and college, because they really, often that gives them a great incentive to do that. What we have been involved for the last couple of years in a program that provides some career-related training in school, and then the opportunity for students to have a paid internship in the summer. So we currently have, this past summer we had students working at ESL, Federal Credit Union, Wegmans, Harris, M&E Engineering. And what happens to students when they do that is they learn a lot. They end up often getting mentors who give them advice about where you should go to college. They develop relationships with the people they're working with who they learn how to dress. They learn how important it is to be punctual. And ESL, for one, has been pretty incredible because they have supported these kids over the years. They've always had summer internships, and now they have, I think, 8 or 9 kids, not kids, people who work full-time for ESL
nice.
now,
Oh,
who
fantastic.
came through that. But it's a really exciting program. We're working on expanding the number of summer internship opportunities for kids, just in general for kids in the city schools as well. And we have been reaching out, and if anyone is interested in the possibility of that, this works best if you're the kind of work, first of all, it's best in the city because the kids are all in the city. But if you're the kind of workplace where you might have a need for someone to do something in the summer, because really there are certain workplaces, the Red Wings is one of them, where they use these kids to run their kiosks. So it can work into a business model, and it's also tremendously supportive of our future, because the more young people we have understanding their role in the labor force and the fact that they can have a career with a local company, the better off we are.
That's terrific. That's terrific. We'll take a quick break. I'm talking with Pat Braus, who's the Executive Director of the Rochester Education Foundation. We'll be right back.
Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed today. Learn how at ready.go.
And we're back. I'm Nannette Nocon. It's about money. My guest is Pat Braus, and she's the executive director of the Education Foundation, Rochester Education Foundation, or REF for short. So thanks again for being here, Pat. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. So let's go back to the National Academy Foundation, which provides paid internships to city school students. And there are many employers who are located in the city who provide an opportunity for the children and and like you said, an example with ESL.
Yes, it's amazing. Some of the kids, as I mentioned, how much they benefit from this. I would say also some of what they do benefits the rest of us. We had a young person this summer who actually, in the beginning of the summer, was kicked out of her house, and she ended up in a shelter. And we communicated with the workplace, and we said, I don't know if this is going to work. We're in contact with her. Much to our shock, over the course of the summer, she ended up going into a foster home. So she had a lot of tumult. But she started that job. She showed up every day. She worked for 4.5 weeks. And at the end of it, they said, please come back next summer.
Oh my goodness.
So this is really, given all the challenges young people face, this was an opportunity. I think sometimes you're able to provide something just at the right time in someone's life. Mm-hmm. So I think her life was kind of falling apart on a personal level, but she was able to have the structure, the encouragement, and she got paid for being at this workplace. So they're wonderful. It's amazing. Sometimes you can really, really change a young person's life with, just an internship like that. And her employer loved her.
That's a great story. That really is.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, because it's the stability she needed, like you just said.
Yeah.
A lot of her life is in a lot of transition and a lot of risk, actually. But that's terrific.
Yeah, and I think when you're young, work is you don't really know what the parameters of work will mean.
Sure.
And so for her, this was a really positive experience.
Right, and prepare her for the future.
Yeah.
Now, so how do you find the organizations that would think of hiring the students for the summer? I mean,
that's a good question. There are in the National Academy Foundation structure, there is an advisory group with the STEM high school, which is the engineering and math high school, mm-hmm. and there's some businesses within that group who reach out to their peers. We try to get the word out, so that's one reason I love being here.
Yes,
is we do try to get the word out.
Right.
I think we just try to get the word out and try to market what we do as well as possible. It is a little bit different than the kinds of opportunities other programs offer. I will say one of the directions we would love to go in, our understanding is that years back there was a really vibrant effort to get city school kids jobs in the summer, mm-hmm. kind of coordinated effort. And we would love to be a part of getting more of that going. People often talk about how discouraged they are by the state of the city, the state of the schools. But we know that when a kid has a summer job, mm-hmm. it's almost, pretty much, something like 95% of those kids who go through this NAF program end up graduating high school, and then many of them graduate college. Mm-hmm. And many of them, the employers then offer them a job during the summer.
Sure.
So, this isn't a miracle. This is something, our parents knew about this. Everybody knows when you have work that is a good fit with a young person, that is really a life changer. So we're hoping that other people will contact us and they might have a job that is a good fit for a young person.
That's great. It's just really offering the opportunity for the kids.
Yes.
So how do the kids know about these opportunities? Do they go to REF?
Well, see, that's a really excellent question. Right now, the National Academy Foundation is in 2 high schools. It's in Charlotte and the STEM high school. We're hoping to be able to offer opportunities to kids in other high schools as well. And we have not really nailed down how we will market to those kids. That's a piece. But we have been gathering some new jobs. We have some companies have stepped forward. We hope to continue doing that. We're doing some work with Junior Achievement, which has a wonderful reputation and does great work in the community. So I think networking, and really reaching out. The basics for student work, you really need to have, the students have to have a certain grade point average and attendance. That's very important. But we think this is a really good possibility. I know that in other cities, like Minneapolis is one of them, the mayor and the community have really made student jobs a big priority, because it's very important. And when we talk about, and I think we may a little later during this program, you talk about getting more kids into college. Kids need a reason to go.
Sure.
And if you could be right, if you could be a banker, if you go to college, and you might even have a job waiting for you, that's a pretty big hook.
Sure. Yeah, cause and effect.
Yes.
That's right. And speaking of that, we talked about, I'm going to jump to it, the College Access Network. So how does that work? Because, in order to, sometimes college seems so far away and so difficult to attain. What kind of support?
Well, this is a community effort started this year involving local colleges and universities, not-for-profits, the city school district. It's right now a program of REF. And the focus of this is just to get more kids to have access to college. And one of the many messages that has to get out there, it has to do with financial aid. What we know is that the city high schools, the rate of filing a financial aid form ranges from 30% of the kids in one school all the way up to 80%. And we know that if first of all, we know that Rochester City School District has many kids who are low income, and if they're going to go to college, they need to get financial aid.
Yes.
So that's kind of a gateway. If we can expand that gateway, we will help to have more kids going to college. So one of the messages we're trying to get out is that the form has to be filled out early, and there are many sources in the community where you can get it filled out with you for free.
I see. So you help them find those resources.
Yes, so that's one area. We're also looking at, we're basically looking with these partners at what are some opportunities as a community to kind of move forward, getting more kids into college. Knowledge is a big issue. A lot of our kids in the city, they don't necessarily take college trips. They don't necessarily know what they need to get into college. And the good thing about this enterprise is there's so many good models nationally. So I think we're going to do wonderful things to really spread the word that if you are someone who wants to go to college and you're a good student, there should be opportunities out there to help you go.
Sure. Oh, that's great. That's great. It shouldn't be a barrier, the lack of knowing what the process and how it works.
Yes.
And yeah, it's great. Because sometimes the kids probably need help from their parents, but sometimes the parents can't provide the help. So.
Well, the city school district for the last 10 years has told us that the kids entering kindergarten, 40% of their parents never graduated high school. So that means they're very unlikely to be able to help their kids with those college applications.
Sure.
And so many people, myself included, will share about the challenges of working with kids on college applications. It's not simple.
Yeah, and of course there's the fee. Actually, I'll share you a story. When I was arrived here as an immigrant, my mother had 5 children, widowed, so we didn't have any money. So I wanted to apply to Cornell and RIT, wrote to both and said, my mother has no money, I have no money, I'm only 15, I can't have a job. So would you please accept my application without the $50 fee? And they both wrote to me, both schools wrote to me and said, attach this letter to your application. You don't have to pay the $50.
No kidding.
And they both accepted me, luckily, and provide. But it's the kind of thing that you shouldn't have the financial aid be an issue. Just kind of go with it. And luckily, I got a lot of financial aid. So
what a tremendous story! I think that's a great story for a lot of reasons. Partly that we need to get the word out to kids that there is a way. There really is a way. And some, even we hear there's some kids who don't live with their parents. Some kids who are, they're literally living on their own. There is a way. I mean, they can fill out financial aid forms with the help of folks from local colleges. There's a College Bowl Sunday where they get a lot of free help. So it is really, I think we as a community have tremendous opportunities to really support these city kids in ways that, like you're a great example, somebody who remembers that challenging process of getting into a college and dealing with some of the barriers that that someone else might have said, I can't do it because I don't have the $50. But we really, and you also demonstrate what what we read about is that tenacity. You need to have that tenacity to say, I may not meet every requirement, but I'm going to push to get there. So I think we as a community have great opportunities to help these kids do a lot better.
Yeah, that's great. And thanks for all the work that you guys do.
Oh,
at
thank
REF.
you.
So then there's another program that caught my interest. That's the Rock Read. Tell me about Rock Read.
Well, Rock Read is a program, we're a partner in that, and that is a program that was really pushed by the City School District in partnership with Wegmans and the Razor Sharks and some local companies with a great idea, which was, why can't we get books to kids so they can read during school vacations? We know kids need to be better readers. And so this group and Howie Jacobson have really pushed to get incentives for kids to read. So when kids read a book over the summer vacation, if they write a report on it, they get coupons to Wegmans, like a family meal. Or they might get tickets to the Razor Sharks or the Red Wings. So I would say it's a really nice program that gives exactly the right message about kids need to read.
Sure.
And I think that in our computer-driven age, that message really needs to get out there. We're a partner. We help supply the books and give some input in terms of what books kids might want to read.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. So if you're not running the program, you're partnering with different organizations.
Yes.
So it's really sort of the central station, if you will,
Yeah.
to help the children get the education, a great education.
Yeah, well, we do, and we have some other smaller partners programs that we're sort of the parent partner for, because our feeling is everybody doesn't need their own independent organization. What we really want to focus on is how can we get things to kids, resources and programs. So, so we do see ourselves that way.
That's great. So Pat, our viewers who are watching this, hearing maybe for REF for the first time, some things that they can do is, number one, if they have instruments in their closet or someplace that they have not used that they might think about donating. Right?
Absolutely.
To have that accessible. And then they can also donate funds because that's
we always appreciate
501(c)(3)
that.
and they get the tax deduction for their instrument and also the cash contribution. If they themselves are employers, particularly in the city, that they might open to having a paid internship for the students. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
I would say the one other thing is at this time of year, a lot of people think of holiday efforts they can make, and we've had wonderful partners in the past who have done book drives over the holidays.
Oh.
We, as I mentioned earlier, we like new books, and partly that's because for kids to get a new book is so exciting. They just love it. So children's books, that's another opportunity, and we are also welcome to suggestions from people in terms of how we can make a difference for kids.
Thank you. Thank you for the passion you have for REF, for
Thank
being
you.
the founding director. I think that's fantastic, and wishing the organization lots of good things in the future, and hope that more people get to know the organization and have wonderful results for the community.
Thank you so much for having me here.
My pleasure. And thank you, our guests, for watching us in this program of It's About Money. My guest is Pat Braus. She's the Executive Director at the Rochester Education Foundation. Until next time, I'm Nannette Nocon.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you have any questions for It's About Money, please email Nannette at nnocon@aol.com. This program was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.